Hey, FanboyNation.
This is your pal Daffy Duck, and you're watching.
You're watching.
We're watching. You're watching Fanboy.
Fanboy. Fanboy.
Fanboy.
Fanboy.
A fanboy, etc.
FanboyNation.
Dot. I assume Tom.
This is going to be the first annual TomCon, running from October 24th through the 25th, a TomFest family reunion taking place at the Crown Plaza in Costa Mesa, California. Today, I have Mikee Bridges with me. Mikee, how are you?
Good, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Listen, man, it's exciting to talk to you. This is an event for 80s, 90s, and early 2000s Christian alt-rock and hard rock music. Orange County being the primary scene of the Christian Jesus Freak movement from the 60s and 70s, and then Stryper in the 80s, and so many other bands that came out of the region that it's only fitting to be here in Orange County.
Yeah, it is the birthplace of Christian alternative rock, Orange County for sure.
You know, it's interesting the way things are because Christian contemporary has its issues and its images and, you know, let's say shenanigans behind the scenes, because when money's involved, shenanigans are always going to be happening. Take us through, first of all, for people that don't know who Tom is or was, let us know who Tom is and how TomFest eventually became TomCon.
Well, I was in some bands and I was also a promoter at the time. And my bands got, you know, semi-popular in and around our city. And that made for some good concerts that we would put on as well. And that really just morphed into doing a music festival. After having done concerts after concerts, Fridays and Saturday nights, I thought, well, why don't we do a music festival? And I thought it couldn't be that hard, right? And it was very much so. It was super difficult, but the name for it came from, we were driving around one way on the coming home from seeing the site that we had found. And we were all joking, and somebody said, why don't you name this event Tom or Frank or something like that? And we all laughed, and so we named it TomFest. It's not named after anyone. It's an absolute joke. Later on, though, the audience kind of took hold of it, and it became The Other Music. It stood for TOM, The Other Music, which is a play on our Christian alternative rock was, the different style or different type of music than you would normally hear. We're The Other Music.
Right. It's interesting to me. So I didn't come from the Evangelical Movement. My background comes from the apostolic traditions. So I'm part of the Eastern Orthodox Church. I'm very familiar with the Oriental Orthodox, the Church of the East, and Latin Mass and Eastern Roman Catholic. So when, Christian music, and I put that in quotes because it was unfamiliar to me when I first moved to Orange County, as like sounding very secular and then peppering in the name of Jesus from time to time was very strange to me.
Yeah, my wife is Russian Orthodox. She comes from Russia. And so when she came here and I told her my history, she's kind of known a little bit, but I told her all the history, and then she saw it and was, in and around some of my friends that were in it too. She was like, what is this? She could not understand it whatsoever.
So your wife was definitely as confused as I was.
Yes, absolutely. But coming from us, like Orange County, the hippie Jesus movement kind of happened up in the Bay Area and then moved its way down into Orange County. And the music started becoming more alternative. It wasn't straightforward rock. It wasn't even, Stryper or Petra, or it wasn't any of those things. It was this underground, interesting sound, dangerous and punk rock and weird and, just wonderful stuff. So a lot of people gravitated towards that, but Orange County for sure, by far, just exploded with all that in the 80s. And we're celebrating all that, right? The festival became a convention. Instead of doing a music festival, the convention is just a place for us fans of all those old bands to hang out with them and get an autograph and tell a story and listen to a story and literally rub shoulders in a room full of legendary musicians. It's going to be quite a good time.
I saw Doug Van Pelt's name on there, and Doug, please forgive me. I did start laughing because I wasn't familiar with you, but as soon as I saw the name Van Pelt, I first went to Lucy and Linus Van Pelt from Peanuts. And I was like, if he doesn't bring a blanket, I'm going to be slightly disappointed. But
He's a great guy. He's been a literal legend in especially the metal end of Christian music, and had a magazine for decades, print magazine, online magazine, graphic designer guy, author, musician, was in a band and made records. So guy's been around. He's definitely an icon.
there's one thing I do want to ask you regarding music-wise.
Yeah.
Christian death metal.
Yeah.
How does this fit into everything? I mean, because we have death metal and black metal and all the other genres that are very satanic, and here we are taking those genres, and I understand the turning it on its head and making it Christian, but like to keep that genre and the same gravitas and growling and everything that goes along with it, but now using it as praise music was also very confusing.
Yeah, I can see that from the outside. From the inside, I would say this, as a kid, that I'm no longer a Christian, full transparency, but I grew up in an evangelical home. Throughout my entire career, my life, I was a professional Christian, a missionary. And when you're looking at it from the inside, I think for me as a musician, I was listening to stuff that was quote unquote secular or worldly, but there was nothing to compare it to that I could listen to and feel good about.
Mhm.
Like I didn't want to listen to that stuff because I felt like it was satanic or whatever, evil. So to have somebody sound like that and have that aggression, the stuff that I did like, and have those vocals and, kind of getting, I don't know, running your energy out, like, putting it out there, like getting it out of your system, yelling, screaming, why do we do sports? Just getting it out. Like it was, we didn't have a way to do that. So to be able to hear a band that was like, oh my gosh, they're punk rock. We don't have Christian punk rock. But for them to adopt that style and then sing lyrics that were, true to my heart and beyond, like that was just magic for me. So from the outside looking in, yeah, that's weird. That's just another jar of mayonnaise you stuck a different label on. That's really weird. But for us, I think we were looking for a way to be able to listen to what we wanted to, as well as not, be evil. As funny as that sounds.
It almost felt like playing roulette where you're betting on red and black and hoping it doesn't pop up green.
Yeah. It is a little bit confusing. I still kind of scratch my head, but it definitely, it's still a thing. Still a thing. In every genre, there isn't a genre of music you're not going to find a Christian doing that same thing.
Right. It does beg the question of someone that's left the faith, the desire to put on a convention that still involves the faith is unique. Do you mind if we go into how you lost your faith or why you stepped away from it? And then how do you reconcile that with having a wife who's Russian Orthodox and part of one of the earliest apostolic traditions?
My wife is Russian Orthodox by birth. You know what I mean? It's a cultural thing. She does not, her mother is a church-going Russian Orthodox lady for sure, like at church 6 days a week. And those are services where you're standing for 5 hours and like, wow. So no, like my wife, Easter and Christmas and some other occasions, she does go to church. But not in the way like my mother-in-law does. That's that part. I studied my way out. I studied the Bible. I wanted to know who God was in a deeper way than I'd ever known. I really wanted to pursue that. And I started with a class on the book of Revelation. And I had that book so wrong. And I had misinterpreted it. I did not put any context to it. And I learned it with context. and my eyes just popped open. It's very revealing about the socio-economic times, the political times back then, and it tells that story. And it's fascinating. So that really got me like, oh my gosh, I want to know more. Did a study on Genesis, a really, really in-depth study with a pastor and a very progressive pastor, and really dissected Genesis. And it was very fascinating how many authors there were, what stories they came from. For me, Genesis was the beginning, right? So, but there are stories that predate Genesis that fed into Genesis story and the Old Testament, throughout the Old Testament. That piqued my interest, right? Like, okay, well, what was before this Bible, and how did the Bible come together? All the extra books that were not canonized, what was that? What about this? What about, how come this book wasn't in there and this book was? And that became very exciting for me. And then I started to question, well, what was before my God? How was my God made? How was Yahweh? What did he come from? Like, what was there stories before that, that pointed to him or something? And finding, those things to be true, and still fascinates me to this day. But looking back, I can't anymore say that I believe that this is like the word of God, untouched by man, breathed by God. It is inerrant. I couldn't do that anymore. And I had to walk away from literally a life in ministry, 30 plus years professionally, paycheck. I mean, I was in ministry hardcore and all over the world, and that had to go, and I couldn't go back to it. But it made me more fascinated with the Bible, and I got into that even more, and I found it releasing to go into it and get the answers to my questions.
Does it push you towards agnosticism or atheism in that regard? Because there's two forms of agnosticism. There's agnosticism leading to atheism, and there's agnostics that lead to theists. And so where is that balance for you?
I don't know where I've landed, to be honest with you. This isn't very old for me. I'm freshly going through it, a couple of years, 3 years, 4 years. And it's been kind of a dare I say, journey, but I don't know. I'm still kind of free falling. I know that I love science because I was told not to kind of look at some things in science, evolution being one of them. In the evangelical faith, they're really against that kind of stuff, things you need to stay away from and all that, and not to believe in. And I went and started opening up books on those subjects. So right now, my brain is really in the sciences, and I believe that there is a spirituality to human beings. I think that we yearn for that in some way, shape, or form. It's obvious in the stories from people that lived on the earth 10,000 years ago, and their cave drawings. You know what I mean? Like you can see that we've been reaching out for that. I think we need to be together too. We love community and need to be in that. So that's all I know. I don't have anything against anybody that's a Christian or any other religion. To each his own. We got to figure all our stuff out ourselves. If it's helpful for people, that's great. I didn't throw everything out of my when I left the faith. I obviously still believe some things, and it's part of me. So I still speak the language. But yeah, I don't
Well, to be
know.
fair, I did have to learn the evangelical language in graduate school.
Right.
Because coming from the apostolic traditions where I'd hear stuff like pre-tribulation rapture, which is nowhere in our vocabulary. Rapture isn't in our vocabulary whatsoever.
Exactly.
All this stuff that I was like, what are you guys talking about?
Exactly.
And then I'd hear this stuff and I was like, this has nothing to do with anything we've ever discussed from the early church. Like,
Yes. We
what
are
do you, I'm sorry.
people my age that have come up in the that are at least, around 50 years old, that came up in evangelical homes. They came up through the satanic panic. So
Mm,
everything at the time was satanic. Your neighbors could be. There were cults everywhere. They were killing babies, and UPC codes had satanic messages in them, backward masking on records. I mean, everything was heightened, right? It was
mm,
just like, oh my gosh. So Christianity was very, very, very different than I think most arms out there. But
right.
yeah, the rapture. We were very into the rapture because of the satanic panic. The time's coming. Like you said, you guys have no idea what we're talking about
Yeah.
then. But I, as a Christian, was going, how do you not? What are you talking about? It's in the Bible. No,
Right.
no.
It's
I was
not
like,
in the
wait.
original translation. Sorry,
I
guys.
was like, wait, it isn't? No, wait, that I've based my entire life on telling people that, accept Jesus, because I don't want the rapture's coming, guys, like tomorrow.
Right.
And I don't want you to die. Genuinely, I don't want you to die. I love you. I know I don't know you, but I love you. And I don't want you burning in a lake of fire, which I also believe. You know what I mean?
Well,
Like
none of
that.
us, we don't want anybody to go to hell. Let's be honest.
Right. Right.
Uh, no, but like the rapture things threw me for a loop. And there was a video that just actually came out yesterday of an American Russian Orthodox priest who had converted from the evangelical movement to Orthodoxy, and this British evangelical woman was telling him he wasn't saved and was trying to argue with him. And he's like, "Look, let's just enjoy these couple of minutes that we're going to talk to each other because
Yeah.
you're going to go back to the UK. I'm going to go back to Texas. There's no reason for us to argue over this. This is our perspective. That's yours.
Sure.
And let's leave it at that."
Great
And
attitude.
yeah, and I remember the very first day of graduate school, and this is a personal anecdote, so I could share this with you. Um, it was very first day of class, and our professor took us to dinner as just kind of all of the new grad students getting to know each other. So one lady is like, "So you're Orthodox?" And I said, "Yes, I am." She's like, "So you guys are basically Catholic without the Pope?" And I was like, "Sort of, but it's far deeper than that.
It's
But
a little different.
let's leave it at the surface level for that."
Sure.
And she looked at me and she goes, "Are you pre or post?" And I just have this blank stare on my face going, "Pre or post what?" And she's like, "Tribulation." And I pulled back for a second. I was like, hold on. How about you explain this to me like I'm five? Because I think we're
Yeah.
speaking the same language, but we're definitely using a different dialect.
Yeah.
And so she explains it to me. And I said, "Oh, the apocalypse." She said, "Well, we don't call it that." And I said, "That's nice. I'm Greek Orthodox. It's a Greek word. We do." And so when she explained it to me, and I was like, "Well, if you actually read Revelation, I would say you have to be post because the Antichrist has to come first. No one is going to get whisked away before the Antichrist comes." And she just scoffs at me and storms off, throwing her hands up. And he calls himself a Christian. And I looked at my professor. I was like, "What was that?" And he starts chuckling and goes, "Don't worry, it's not your theology. You'll learn about it later in the semester."
Right.
I was like, "Okay." So that was my
Right.
first encounter with rapture theology.
Yeah.
And then got into it, and then finding out that the reason why 10 books of the Bible have been removed was because Martin Luther didn't like several of them to the point that he almost eliminated Timothy, Titus, and James. And then he took those 10 scriptures from the Old Testament, put them in the back, called them the Apocrypha or deuterocanonical texts. And then those eventually get cut off because it was cheaper to print the Bible without them. I was like, it
It's
was
a lot.
essentially right. It was essentially a cost cutting thing, which blew my mind because it
Oh,
tells you right there in the Bible you're not allowed to add or remove from it.
right.
And here you guys took 10 books out, and I was like, that's not how this works. So,
Right.
like, coming from those apostolic traditions, it confused me as to how this was viewed as Christianity when it's abridged Christianity. And I'm not knocking anybody that doesn't know, and I'm not obviously not telling them to go to hell, and I'm definitely
Yeah.
not telling you you're going to hell because you
Yeah.
left the faith. But I understand from you coming from where you were and going, wait a minute, there were these 7 to 10 books, depending if you're using the Greek or Latin translation, that were removed. And there were these aspects that were rearranged. And now when you translate this, where the original text says baptism is salvific and now it's symbolic. Like, how does this all come about? So I understand your perspective
All
and
of
I
that.
understand why you ran.
Everything coming out of your mouth is so fat, like yes and yes and yet, like all of that is a rabbit trail, and I love going down each and every one of those to get those answers. Because when I look at it, many people have said, "Well, you were never really a Christian, anyways." And now as I'm thinking about it, I'm like, as I'm looking at the origins of this book that we call the Bible, at least the American one.
Mhm.
I don't think a lot of people that call themselves Christians even know what that even means,
Right.
or what the Bible really is, or where it comes from, or who wrote what. I certainly, in all of my years, I just kind of listened to the pastor, and I did the sheets, and I went to Bible study, and I went to men's group, and I, did my private Bible study with my guys and all that stuff. And we got pretty deep in lessons and stuff, but never, took a few steps back and even said, "Hey, what about Africa's Bible?
Mhm.
Their Orthodox Bible, because that thing's huge. Like, what's that all about?"
So there are 83 books in the
Yeah,
Ethiopian Bible. And the reason
yeah.
being is because they didn't show up to the Council of Nicaea. They didn't have
Yes.
representatives. So the reason why certain New Testament books, and I'll put New Testament books in quotes only because these are the ones that are excluded. And people are like, "Oh, it's Da Vinci Code and it's all this other stuff." And I was like, no, it's very simple and it's completely unsexy. And I use the word sexy in this regard, not to be blasphemous, but in the
Yeah,
romanticized,
yeah.
conspiracy is that, oh, they weren't in first century Greek, so we have no record of it in first century Greek, so it's out. And that's
Wow.
and that's really the only reason why those books are not in there. Like, if the epistle, or I'm sorry, if the Gospel of Thomas had a record of first century Greek, it'd be in the Bible. But
Yeah.
because they have it only in third century Coptic, not in the Bible.
Wow.
And that's the only reason why it's not in there, is because we have no record of it from the first century.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
I
And
just love stuff like that. Love it now. I wish I got into it back then. I really wish I would have studied like this, but I didn't.
and I can't fault anybody in the evangelical movement for having an abridged Bible and not knowing this, because church history is not taught in the evangelical movement.
No.
So it's not anybody's fault. If you want to seek, there are books out there. If you don't, but
But
be happy where you are.
I kind of like, well, I've had a lot of pastors in my life, right? I've been very close to a lot of pastors in my life. And I know that those pastors went through schooling, and they, got their MDivs and all that stuff. And then they had spoken to me about the things that they had learned. I learned this afterwards, that going through school, you're learning these discrepancies, you're learning these things, but I never found them to be taught in church. And when I first went through the first deep study in Revelation, that really opened my eyes because of things like you said, rapture and all that stuff. My pastor had to teach it outside of his church in another building,
Mm.
because if he would have taught it in his church, there'd be people that would have left it. And so he needed, we couldn't afford that. But I found it interesting that he said that many pastors know this information. It's just not taught. And I was just shocked.
See, I didn't know that many pastors knew that information. That's surprising to me.
You get it in seminary. They're
Wow.
taught the
Okay.
discrepancies and the Apocrypha and everything. I started even reading a little bit of that, going, "Oh my God, why can't this be in there?"
Mhm. Yeah,
Genesis speaks to the book of Enoch so many times, back and forth so many times. It's like, why isn't this part of this? And we should read it because it's, crazy,
right.
fascinating.
Enoch would be the book I would consider apocryphal or
Yeah,
deuterocanonical, whereas the books that were actually removed from the Protestant Bible that are part of the Orthodox and Catholic Bible are canonical.
got it.
And so it's just interesting in how it goes, but there are references to it. Christ does quote from it. And this going into, the TomCon, you having fallen away and still in your free fall, yet there's still something that speaks to being connected to this faith that you've pulled away from because you're still putting on a convention for the faithful. So that still has a tie-in in there in a sense.
Yeah, just by label, I think. I mean, I spent my formative years being in bands and Christian bands and doing Christian shows and concerts and music festivals. And I can't just, throw that all out. And speaking to a lot of my friends from that scene back then, the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, many have left the faith. Some are really far-reaching right, some are far-reaching left, some are Eastern Orthodox, some have become priests. The
I
band
probably know a few
Luxury,
of them.
the band Luxury, they've all become priests. And, I mean, we are all from all over the spectrum. And it's been many years since I did the festival, and I always wanted to do one last like high school reunion type thing where we get everybody together and it's laughs and there's no music really because that just adds to, production and it's difficult and that. I'd rather sit down and really watch a podcast happening in front of me with some of my musical heroes. And just because I'm not a Christian anymore doesn't make some of these guys not my musical heroes. It's the soundtrack to my life. It's what I grew up listening to. I love them. I will always love them. And so this event was just a celebration of old times, old stories, old tours. Back then, as bands, we were more of a brotherhood than we were, um, you know, professional, I guess you could say. Things changed in the 2000s with the advent of the agent for the bands. So before the agent for the bands, we used to just be able to call each other. Hey, band member, I'm going to do a music festival. I got $500. Will you come play? Yep, I will. Okay, cool. Bye. And then we were done. Then agents became involved and managers, and that you couldn't do that anymore.
Right.
And before all that happened was TomFest. And so TomFest was built on the brotherhood of everybody. All the bands were involved in making it happen. And we all did it together and we all had a great time together. And there was no backstage, there's no VIP, there was no green rooms or anything like that. We all just hung out together. And so that's what this event is. It's not really religious. It's not, we're not there. There's no agenda to it except for talking about old stories and the music and getting a signature from your musical hero. So
it's almost an autograph convention or like a Comic-Con type setup.
it is absolutely a 100% a Comic-Con setup.
So then this also begs the question for the people that have fallen away from the faith like yourself, that have the chance to come reconnect with musical inspiration. We'll put it that way.
Sure.
Why should they come if they're hesitant thinking that this is, straightforward ministry convention versus a fan signing convention and interacting with people that they grew up listening to and admiring?
It's the brand, I think. People know, as an evangelical Christian, I was a pretty rebellious one. I didn't mind the tattoos and the smoking and the cussing and the drinking and the things that I saw people were doing but hiding. And the music was tougher and, a little screamy. And the music festival was, you could, there was a mosh pit, you could stage dive. We had tattoos on site. You could actually get a tattoo, which a lot of churches would not even show up because of that. So we were real fringy, very much speaking to people that would think that Christians were lame or, they're going to get, accosted by a bunch of evangelicals when they came through the gates. So we were much different than that. My approach was. So I'm known for that already. So the people that know that branding know that it's not going to be like a Christian music conference. People that don't know, you can't tie those two things together. And it's unfortunate that we have such a polarized cultural atmosphere, religious atmosphere, and political atmosphere right now, because I know that that's keeping people away from coming to it. So it is meant to be a lighthearted, no agenda event that's just a great place to listen to fun stories from back in the day. Bunch of old farts that used to play music, getting together one last time,
That still all think we're 15.
Right. But I will add this. There's going to be some very extra special moments with live music as well. It's not just all interviews, but the live music is very extra special.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. I know it's October 24th and 25th. It's going to be in Costa Mesa. We've mentioned, what those that have fallen away could expect and why they should come. What about the faithful and why they should come, even though this is more a middle of the road, let's say, balance between secular and, talking about faith. So we'll ride the line of secular and faithful in this regard.
Anybody that grew up as a Christian, one of these bands has crossed their ears at some point, and a member from one of those bands will be at TomCon. And the difference again with TomCon than other conventions is these members will be walking around talking with you after they're done with their panel or before it. You'll be able to take a picture with them, get a signature. It's a meet and greet, right? So people that grew up in faith, no, don't expect there to be a worship set, or we're not going to be reading out of the Bible or anything. But we were all Christians at that time, so it's obviously going to come up, and we're obviously going to talk a little bit about it. But it's not meant for any agenda. Like I said, there won't be anything religious about it. The people that will come will really enjoy those stories because, again, they've crossed these bands for sure.
And people that are going to be there from Roster Music Club podcast, Joey's Venson, Eddie Harbor is part of the TomCon staff. He's going to be there. Jeremy Allen Gould from the Rumors Are True podcast. So you have quite a few people coming in. Lenore Ortega Till from Five Iron Frenzy and the Fast Feeling. So you got quite a few people that are going to be there that are recognizable in this circle.
Yeah, those are just our moderators. And then the panelists, there's lists of the panelists online. You can go to tomconvention.com and everything's there. But and you can also click on any picture and ask that panelist a question, even if you're not going, which is kind of fun. But yeah, there's every panel is full of legendary musicians from the 3 decades. Christian alternative rockers for sure.
As things continue to progress, and I know that you're saying this is kind of like the last hurrah, this is the final high school reunion. What if this does hit as big as, as you didn't expect? Will there be a round 2?
I don't know. It's particularly difficult, like I said, because of because of culture and politics and religion right now. It's just everything's heightened, and it seems like even really good friends that I know that are on polar opposite sides are butting heads, and that I don't want that. I'm not interested in even having an event where that would happen. I love all these people that are gathering. I don't care where they come from. I don't care what they believe. I just like them. So that's a difficult one. I don't know. Plus, it's a lot of work.
Listen, conventions are never easy. They sound like they'll be a breeze, and then something's going to pop up.
Sure. And having over 55 guests, 55 panelists, that's just a lot of wrangling to do.
It definitely is. And then making sure that it's a different 55 guests in year 2 or year 3, or, blending them together. It's never going to be easy.
Right. Right. But everything's okay for now. And if we had to start tomorrow, we'd be ready. So we're ready for it. I think everybody will have a good time.
So who was the big get for TomCon with the Tom convention?
There's so many of them. I mean, from every decade, you've got literal guys that are legendary musicians, been around for so long in so many different types of bands. I mean, the list is extensive, and there really isn't there. I just gathered as many as I could, but all of them are have quite the lineage. So it's exciting.
I'm excited for you in putting this on because this came across my Instagram. I was like, oh, this would be a fun one to talk to. And, I know you were a bit hesitant and apprehensive at first. And I was like, no, we're going to have a conversation. This sounds like a fun convention. And you were more than willing and gracious to do this with me. So I really appreciate it, Mikey.
Thank you.
Saturday and Sunday, 24th, 25th, just before Halloween, everything's coming together. Are there still room rates for people if they're coming out of town, if they're trying to look for a hotel room, or is this primarily presumed to be a localized con because everybody pretty much grew up here?
There's both. There's people coming in, lots of people flying in too. The event is from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. every day, every Friday and Saturday, October 24th, 25th. At 9:30 p.m. is when live music starts. There are hotel rooms available. They are $149 for the TomCon rate. And there's a pool, restaurant, bar on site. Kids are free. Parking is free. And there's lots of food and stuff to do within walking distance right there. Orange County, everything's right there. So we're right by the airport. It'll be a good time for everybody, but look forward to it for sure.
And you definitely sold me on free parking because that's the one thing that drives me crazy is valet parking and paying for parking.
Right.
Valet drives me nuts because I hate giving up my keys.
Yes. I need to write that down. I need to post about free parking for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah.
We're coming to the event. It's 2 days, 24th, 25th. Thank you for having me out. I really appreciate that you're going to allow me the honor of coming and hanging out for a little while with you guys.
Sure.
You're going to have panels, you're going to have booths. If I'm going to start on the floor and let's use an Orange County analogy. So like Disneyland, right? You either go right and start in Tomorrowland and work your way around back to Frontierland, or you start in Frontierland and work your way all the way around back to Tomorrowland. I walk through the door. Which way should I head, depending on if I want to meet the bands first or if I want to go to the panels first?
Well, it's more like what you said with Comic-Con. So if you've been to a Comic-Con, it's a little bit more like that, where there's a merch area that you can go to that people will be milling around all the time. Small. This is a miniature Comic-Con. I mean, small. And so everything's right there in one small ballroom. And one part of it is merch that you can be in. People can be talking while there's a panel going on. And the next part is the room where all the panels are happening, which is every hour on the hour, basically. And then outside is the foyer where many people will be mingling, and the restaurant's right outside of that. So it's really all in one little space, but it's all together. Everybody's going to be, it's kind of like a church building where you kind of walk into the foyer and then you can walk into the activities, but everything's right there, all condensed down. So.
And if you crazy people decide to have a jam session, remember, lights out 10 p.m. city ordinance.
That's right. That's right.
That's the way the jam session's always got to work, my man.
Yeah, man. That's right.
Mikey, where can we find you on social media and the convention? I know it's tomconvention.com that people will be able to pick up tickets, see who the panelists are. We're only a couple of days out. But, social media, people love to check out stuff on Instagram and Twitter or X or Blue Sky or whatever, TikTok and all the other stuff.
Yeah, tomconvention.com. Everywhere else on social media, TomCon. And then I'm Mikee Bridges, Mikee Bridges, just like it sounds. I'm at Mikee Bridges on all social media and all that stuff. And you can find me on the TomCon website and all that stuff too. So
awesome.
easily found.